All right, so much accomplished in this one song. A couple things that I'll bring up and then we can open up the discussion. So we've crossed the threshold. Now I'm saying the threshold is a new world. So there is that new world, even though the threshold he's crossed is accepting the position as George Washington's right-hand man as an aide. What's this new world that he's now in?
It's kind of an upper class world, like a world that's outside of his own, because he grew up in the Bahamas or Bermuda.
Yeah.
So yeah, down in the Caribbean, and he was poor, and his mother died early on. So it's a whole change for him going from this poor, working hard to, hey, I'm married to somebody that's from upper class family.
Yeah, and really evidenced by that thing. He is now upper class enough to be a legitimate suitor and then, hand in marriage to a very, very upper class family. Especially when in an era where class and social status meant a lot. So another thing this does, and this is probably something you're going to be wrestling with in your project, this is something where I think usually, like in history books too, even straight nonfiction, usually ends up with some sort of bias in terms of what they choose to tell us and what they don't choose to tell us, is how to condense time. How do we move forward when we're dealing with a period that we don't want to talk about, or we don't have time to talk about, or we have to get by? There's a lot of ground. This is one thing where the form of a musical has a distinct advantage. Music in a musical can do two things extremely well. It can expand a moment, a thought, something that's inside, and all of a sudden you're kind of like frozen in time, and the character gets to look at like all aspects of himself and whatnot. It's very good at that, but it's also very good for progressing us very quickly through a large sequence of events, and we kind of tend to accept the speed because of just the conventions of what a musical is. We can fall in love, we can believe that Alexander has fallen in love with Eliza in 3 minutes because we're accustomed to this type of song, we're accustomed to love songs, and the idea of music brings bigger honesty to the picture, and we just don't fight that progression. Songs, a lot of songs, even story songs, progress. Country songs will often go from like young to middle age to death, in their story songs. There are many songs that I can think of in the country genre, storytelling wise, to do that. So we used to that. So the question is anybody running across the idea of they need to crunch time? They got their story they want to tell, but they maybe got this big, long block in the middle, and this is going to be one of those creative areas where how you decide to do it is as much of a hallmark as how you're going to style and set up the piece, because it's just not moments you want to deal with. There's probably details and stuff in the larger story, but you're making a choice on how to condense that material. What are some ways in fiction that can be dealt with? Yep.
You can talk about changing seasons and have a sentence. Summer, weather, and fall, which
Yeah.
gone through 6 months.
Yeah. That's good. Any other ideas for how? A couple people I know are doing like letter writing things. You could always have the person writing the letter be, apologize for being so absent from, his or her memoirs for the past X months, years, whatever needed.
Chapter breaks.
Yeah. But you usually want to indicate that the passage has happened, and a lot of times you have to somehow find a way to, without just being, because you're writing fiction of some sort, to not make it just textbook list what's happened in that brief time, but find a way to get that information out. You can use flashbacks later on as an important situation. You maybe just skip that period entirely, and when it becomes something that happened here is relevant to here, then actually bring it up that this happened in the whole, when you get close to that spot. So there's a lot of different ways you can deal with, eliminating those sections that you don't want to deal with. What else do you guys see going on in this song?
She's trying to change his mind about that he can't accomplish things where maybe he thought that he couldn't because of his background. If you say got a whole new world, a place where you can just expand forward.
What does the tone of the music and melody do for Eliza's character? We're test allies, enemies. We're obviously setting her up as an ally, going to be a very close ally, so to speak. How is the music, not just the lyrics, but the music itself and the tone of the music setting up Eliza's character? I'm open for a guess. Yeah. Yeah, I was just say happy. Would it also be fair to say that somehow this music and the melody has an air of innocence about it too? Maybe even a little naivety? That even if you, again, don't understand English, you might be getting the idea that this character is not, doesn't have a big hidden agenda.
Well, and you kind of get the sense that there's a lack of conflict, you know, and there's not going to be conflict.
And story-wise, that really works right now, because we just crossed the threshold, we've come off a period of conflict, so we are. We're in a nice kind of, let's relax and enjoy the new world, and so that accomplishes.
I was gonna say, it kind of seems at the beginning the conflict is in with Aaron Burr's song. You can kind of pick up on the jealousy,
Yeah.
and the rivalry that's eventually gonna come to play. And then also kind of hints at the rivalry between the sisters, Angelica and Eliza, and the fact that, I know in the reading they made her appear like she's single at this time when in real life she was married, but he said it, so, because it's true to her life if she's not married.
Yeah.
Yeah, if she's single.
But it was so quickly resolved along. I mean, it was just like a
Yeah.
short mention in the song, and then just moved on.
Yeah, in real life, Angelica is married when they met this part. But yeah, and you're right. We kind of skipped over Winter's Ball and talking about that. But yeah, we do set up the conflict in Aaron Burr. And like I said, when you've got multiple plots and subplots, it's always a good sign of skill to try to hit those subplots, points in the story at the same time. So at this point, Burr has officially kind of crossed the line where he's kind of Hamilton's foil, antagonist and foil in this thing. As you said, getting more jealous. So they have like kind of everybody cross this boundary at the same time as we launch into the next part of the story. So that's the thing. If you do have a shadow or the person who represents the villain of your story, is there possibly a way do you want to make them also kind of hit this same point as well? All right, we're going to go into Satisfied next. I'd like you to listen for how to Satisfy meet some of the themes of this show. And what we're talking about, even in this class, kind of the whole concept of this class, the themes of the show, I think are kind of summed up in a lot of ways in Satisfy. So I'd like to find your opinions on how, after we